I love me some fantasy Aztecs, you know, brutal savages that tear the heart from their opponent and sacrifice it to their cruel gods. But we don't really have that in Warhammer. I mean, yeah, we've got the frogs and the lizards on one hand, but they don't really sacrifice to a blood god or rip hearts out or anything like that. And on the other hand, we've got world eaters, you know, followers of Khorne, but they lack the drip of an Aztec warrior. So, what if I kitbash the two together? And the basis for this kitbash is going to be this dude over here. He's from the Gore chosen of Grom and Underworlds warband, and I think he looks fantastic. I mean, look at that crown he has. It's like rays of sunshine, and that was the whole idea of the Aztecs. They had to sacrifice blood to keep the sun rising. He looks very much AOS because, you know, that's where Underworlds is situated, but I think I can make him look a little bit more like a 40k model, starting of course with a backpack. So I just gotta clean up this skull here from his back, and then I can just slap on the backpack like this, and that's the first step to making this World Eaters, I don't know, icon bearer. I mean, icons of Khorne are important in World Eaters army, so maybe we will get a character at some point that's bearing a big icon, but until then, I guess this will have to do as a Master of Executions, together with the other Master of Executions I kitbashed before. But let's keep moving. Let's make this guy look like 40k. And I'm gonna take a risk here. I'm gonna start adding the pieces from this guy, the Saurus Astrolith Bearer. That's the guy that I'm going to take this icon from and sort of hand it to him, put it on his staff over there. And now I have this little dilemma. I want to use this weapon, which comes from the Lizardman, because it has more of an Aztec look and feel to it, rather than a chain sword or a chain axe or anything like it. But it doesn't look really modern, and I'm not a big fan of it. It's so slick and so clean, but maybe with the right paint scheme I can make it look more cruel. I mean, look at it, it's more like a Tau weapon like this, but maybe with the right paint scheme, some chains, some nastiness on there, some skulls maybe, I can make it look more like a Khorne weapon. And I'm just gonna slap on this arm here, make it look like he has some mutations, give him a right shoulder pad. I think it will look cool. Let's go. Nice. A big Exalted Eightbound shoulder pad over here with the weapon, and on the other side I did one of those little berserker shoulder pads, those flat ones that they have. And it's time to start working on the staff. This one needs to come off and the other one needs to come on, but of course I'm not gonna do it right now. I'm gonna work on this a little bit because I think this ball definitely needs to go. And what I was thinking, what if I can take this piece over here and kind of turn this into a portal that a bloodletter is crawling out of onto the battlefield. So then this guy is standing over here like that, planting his banner, planting his icon of Khorne and just summoning demons. I think that would be a really cool thing to do if I can manage like this. I think I can make this work. This is a bloodletter and the arms are from the skullcannon, the chariot skullcannon? Skullcannon, I think. And then the head and all the other parts are from there as well. And like this, I can make him sort of swing out of this icon. I just need to find something to close off the back. Maybe some plastic card or something, some cork. I don't know. I must have something. Maybe even cardboard will work. And then I can paint it as if it's like a portal that he's coming out of and he's getting summoned by this guy. So if it all comes together, he's going to be standing something like this. I think that looks pretty epic. Let me see if I can get something to close off that portal. This will do. Piece of cardboard from my airbrush cleaning brushes. So I'll just cut out a piece. Turns out it's actually pretty easy if you shove it in the back. The front has all these icons on it, but the back is pretty smooth. So with some super glue, I can stick this thing on there and then sort of straighten it out. Make sure that, you know, this part of the icon, that's where the portal is coming from, like that. I mean, gotta let this dry, and then I think I can fit this bloodletter in there. I liked the idea of the two rings that he's holding on as he's jumping out, but he looked too much like a gymnast doing his exercises. So instead, I'll just do one hand on a chain with that ring, and then the other, of course, the bloodletter sword, because also, what's a bloodletter without his sword? They're so iconic, they need to be together. Now this, it still needs to dry, this glue needs to dry, and then I can see how I can fit the head on to make him look in the right direction. Here, like that. I think that's a pretty epic composition like this. Him holding that banner up, summoning a demon straight from a portal. I think it looks pretty cool. There's still a few bits and pieces missing though, in my opinion. It needs some more skulls. And I got a bunch of them prepared here. I put these nails through them, so it looks like they nailed these skulls to the armor, to the piece, like you can see here on his backpack. It works really, really well. And once you paint it, you can have this nice rusty skull sticking out of, not rusty nail sticking out of the skull. And it gives you an explanation for how the skull would stick in place, because otherwise if you just glue the skull on top of something, how is it going to stay there? Are they using super glue to get them there? So I'm just going to put a couple of these skulls over here, get some nice crude skulls, orc skulls, human skulls, everything, because hey, Khorne cares not. See, now it starts to look more like an icon of Khorne. Take a look. We got these nice skulls over here, the nails, they stick out quite a lot. I do that intentionally so it's visible, but also it just gives expression to how crude it is to hammer a nail, hammer a nail. They can't get it any deeper, but hey, the skull is in place. Now this way, I think it looks cool, but it's missing some fresh bits. And for that, I'm going for these dead animal bits from Pete, the wargamer. He has his own sprue, and there's some really cool stuff on here. Take a look. There's some nice heads on hooks. And why not take a few of these? I think it will work. Now some fresh bits make sense. Now not everything is instantly a skull. And let's put a hand on there as well. I love it. Some nice gory bits. The only thing that's missing on this sprue, in my opinion, is a skull on a chain. I'm using these things here. They come from the Marauder kits from the old world. But it's really something that's missing here and I would love to have it. But I really like the fact that he has some feathers. Because for the Mesoamerican, for the Aztec look, I think that can help a little bit. Get some more feathers on the guy, on the banner. I'm sure I can find a place for these. Now, I have a bit of a problem. So I'll take a look. This icon, I think it looks amazing. It needs painting. There's gaps here where the bloodlet is coming out. I'll fill that up with green stuff and gore, and that's all fine. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with how this guy looks. Got a couple of feathers over here on his shoulder pad, but there's one thing. The weapon. I said it before, and I'll say it again. This looks like a Xenos weapon. This doesn't look like a World Eaters weapon. And I don't mind the Xenos-y bit. It doesn't look like Khorne. It doesn't look like World Eaters, so I need to do something with this. I gotta go dig in my bits box and figure out what I can do. I think the first fix is going to be the pommel. I can easily snip this off, and then I can use this bit over here from the Lord Invocatus, and then I just glue that here on the back. It looks a bit crude, but I think that will help to make this less of a Xenos weapon and more of a Imperium Chaos weapon. More savage humans, more savage fantasy Aztecs. So that's step one, and then for step two, I think I'm gonna give it a try. Get another one of these nailed skulls and stick it here on the tip of the blade. After all, he doesn't have to stab anyone with this. He just has to swing and chop at them. And this way, I'm happy to tell the story that this is some kind of cache of Xenos or ancient relics that they found. They dug it up, and apparently it was an aspect of Khorne that was being preyed to by ancient humans on this planet. They took this, and now they've fallen clearly more to Khorne, and they started nailing skulls to everything to dedicate it more to Khorne, because they know now that they're working for the Blood God rather than some ancient, unknown, obscure force. And that way he's just sort of keeping the blade as it is, keeping the sigil as it is, but he's transforming it into Khorne bits. And this way, I think we're getting there. Let's add some hobby chain. And I'm just gonna do a little bit. Just from here on the bracer to here right behind that skull. It helps to sell the idea that this is part of the weapon. But I still wanna have a piece of this chain hanging loose, so this will be hanging loose. The rest I can cut off. A little piece of chain here on the backpack, and then I got a tiny piece of chain, and that's gonna go here in the front underneath the shoulder pad. And then I think I'm gonna add a little bit of chain to the icon as well. Actually, not chain, but wire, because I got this nub over here that is sticking out of this icon. I don't know what it's for. Maybe that's how the lizardmen power their stuff, but I'm gonna make it a power unit. I'm just gonna drill a little hole in here. It's just enough to have a little dent, and then I can stick this wire in there and glue it in place with some super glue. Let's use that side. That's the actual flat side. And this wire is really nice. From Dreamstuff World, it's 1 millimeter, half millimeter, 2 millimeter, all kinds. And if you want, you can get it from links in the description below. Those are affiliate links. It's a great way to support the channel. If you're gonna buy stuff from Dreamstuff World anyway, use those links. I get a little kickback. And that wire goes here into the back, right into the shaft. I think that's good enough. I'm really happy. There's only one thing that is missing now, and that's hearts ripped out of the enemy. And I happen to have a couple of bits here that are actually hearts on chains, on strings. These come from the Melusai, the Blood Sisters from the Daughters of Cain from Age of Sigmar. And I use these because they have snake bodies. I use those for my Gene Stealer cults, which is all converted cult of Slanesh instead. I'll put up some pictures right here, show you what it looks like. But these hearts, of course, I need to have these. So I'm gonna put some on the belt of my guy, some on the icon, And then it's finally time to start painting. And I'm going to start the painting with some Mephiston red on the armor. And I'm going to be very rough, kind of like stippling, kind of like dry brushing. Doesn't really matter. I just want to get a layer of this red on there. And by the way, it's been a day and I've been thinking about this weapon, about what am I going to do with it. I was still thinking of maybe cutting it off and replacing it, but I figured out the story because of course the weapon goes with the icon that is summoning the demons. And so the icon kind of feeds off the blood that's being drawn by the weapon. The weapon empowers the icon, and that way he summons those bloodletters and maybe other demons as well. So at every kill he makes, he powers up the pool more and more and more, and then once he has enough kills under his belt, he summons a bloodletter. I think that's the good story, and I think that's really cool. I think that also fits the idea that they found these weapons. They found the weapon, the icon, in some cache somewhere in an old world where they were kind of celebrating Khorne without knowing it was Khorne. And it turns out that this is just what works. They can summon demons like that. I think that's the story that I'm going to tell with this mini. That last red, by the way, was Evil Sun Scarlet. And now I'm just going to put a layer of rock-art flesh on all the pieces that I want to have a fairly light color later on. Bone, skin, cloth, all those things. But yeah, I think I got the story right. I think I got the story right. That, you know, that's also why he would have to be in the front lines. You can't have a World Eaters character standing somewhere at the back instructing people how to fight and then occasionally summoning a demon or something. No, he needs to be on the front lines. He needs to be there. And so that's also a good reason to play him as a Master of Executions. So now it's all coming together. He doesn't have to be a kind of weird icon bearer who stands in the back and holds up an icon, encourages other people to fight. Nah, he is a World Eaters character. He fights on the front lines with his buddies, and on the way in he's summoning demons as he slays his enemies. Next up, a bit of white. Pretty much everything that I hit with rock art flesh is going to become white. The bones, the skulls, the cloth, the skin especially. I like to have that contrast between the two. The darker, redder armor and the white demonic skin, because I think I'm going to add some nice demonic skin. At least some infected and suffering skin. And after this, it's time for a couple of golds. And I'm going to try different kinds of golds. I don't want to paint everything the same way. And I also want to try some new paints. I got some scale 75 golds, necro gold and Viking gold. This here is Viking gold. And I'm going to use this to especially focus on his headdress. I still want to make him a world eater, not a word bearer. Oh my god, no, a world eater. And so the armor trim should be brassy, not gold. But all the other bits, like the Aztec bits, I want to have them looking golden. So after Viking gold comes necro gold, and then the armor trim, I'll do that with Rune Lord brass from Games Workshop. And I was looking at the gold over here. I don't think the Viking gold is orange enough for me. So I'm gonna replace that with some brass scorpion. A little more reddish, a little bit more contrast with the yellow necro gold that I have all around it. Will make it all pop a bit more. Now the base layers are pretty much done all over the mini. I'm gonna wait with these bits over here that I wanna try and paint jade, which is new for me. I've never done that before. First, it's time to add a few layers of wash here and there to start tinting all the white parts. Check it out. I've done some Seraphim Sepia on the bones over here, some Agrax Earth shade, Athonian Camo shade, and then some Mortarian grime. And the goal here is not to shade it, but to just to tint it, to make the skulls look like they're slightly different, because otherwise if they all look the exact same, they look like they all come from the same place. And I want to make this look like it's a trophy rack, like it comes from different creatures, different places, it has different ages, some of it might be with him for a decade, some is very fresh. So all of them look slightly different, and then the whole shading and griming, and so that will take care of the actual shading. Time to work on the jade. I'm going to start it off with stippling some Caliban green. Then I stipple on some Warpstone glow, Sybarite green, and then finally some Waystone green. This is the glossy technical paint that's often used for gems, and I hope with this I can make it look a little bit glossy and a little bit shiny in some places, but not all. You know, jade has that weird aspect that it's sometimes shiny, sometimes not. I guess it depends on how you work it. But I think like this, that looks like pretty jade to me. I can use that on the parts that are on the Blood Priest, the Master of Executions as well. That looks good. I'm just going to do some gold now with the Necro Gold, the same yellow gold that I used on the guy. And maybe I'll find a place here and there to use some of the Brass Scorpion too. Nice. It's gaudy, it's flashy, it's over the top. Exactly how I imagine this sort of icon to be. I'm just going to do a couple of the details and I'm going to skip all of that. So I'll just talk you through it. The skulls, the heads, the hands, all the white bits, same as on the other guy. Rocket flesh, white, and I'm going to stain it a little bit with some washes. The feathers going to be white, and then I think it's time to start painting the blood letter. And again, we're going to stipple. Yeah, life is full of surprises. So this is Berserker Red from Two Thin Coats, which is the same pretty much as Wordbearer's Red from Games Workshop from Citadel. Then I'm going to highlight a little bit with some Fiston Red, mainly his face, his hands, his shoulders. And then I dry brush a little bit of Evil Sun Scarlet straight into the face only to give him the brightest highlight over here. The blade of the weapon is going to get a layer of Warplock Bronze, and the little details like the handguard and the pommel, they become some Runelord Brass, the same as I used on the armor trim of the World Eater. And now I finally blocked in all the colors. It's time for the fun part of miniature painting, for me at least. It's the grime, the blood, gore, the dirt, the nastiness that comes with the grimdark future. I'm going to start working on the skin. First, I'm going to make it look like it's pretty nasty, infected, kind of semi-demonic skin, because if you're that close to a portal that's summoning blood letters, you're going to get affected as well. So here I got some Carrion Crimson from Villainy Inks, from the Grimdark Compendium. And I'm just going to give his skin a little wash with this and make sure it goes into the recesses. And this is a really, really easy way to get yourself some nice infected skin or some demonic skin. This dries up pretty chalky and it'll look horrible. It looks like it's really infected and hurting. Now it's kind of dry, but not really, and I'm just going to use a brush with some white spirits to push it off the upper edges, upper ridges of the flesh and make it settle into the recesses. And the beauty of this little enamel paint is that it has big chunks of red pigment in there. So you get this weird, nasty, almost coagulated blood and weird effect on the skin. It's really, really cool once it's completely dried up. And now I go fishing for some of those chunks here in this cup that I have. I'm going to try and get them into the recesses, exactly where I want them. Like that. That will dry up. It will look really nasty. Look at that. This is amazing for just a single paint. Just white base layer and then Carrion Crimson. For me, it's the best thing since Streaking Grime. Speaking of, Streaking Grime is next. And I'm going to do this all over the armor and the cloth and the skulls. Everything is going to get a layer of grime. And I'm also going to put some Streaking Grime on the icon, but very blotchy, not like a wash, not like I normally do, but just in some places I'm going to add a little bit, and especially around the gold. That needs some shading. Now as a second grime layer, I'm going to use some Ichor of the Damned, which is a black enamel. Slightly more glossy, slightly more satin. And I'm just going to stipple it a little bit here and there onto the cloak and also onto the armor. And this I am going to use for the blood letter. After the grime, time for some verdigris. And I'm going to use good old Nihilak Oxide, but heavily watered down. And I'm just going to go through all of the armor trim, give it a little bit of this verdigris. Next up, a bit of rust, especially on the chains, but I'm also going to do a little bit on the armor of the Blood Priest here. And it's an easy rust recipe, just some Typhus Corrosion for the texture and then some Dirty Down Rust for the colors. So we got the grime, the verdigris, the rust. Look at that beautiful icon now. All of the nails, they also stand out a lot. It really helps to sell this idea that this is old. They hammered the skulls in there, the portal is working, and then have some fresh bits over there too. There's only one thing. I've been looking at my Master of Execution, Blood Priest, Slaughter Priest, whatever you call him, and I don't really like the skin that much. I like it over here. This, the hand, that sort of encrusted, starting mutating, I like it. This piece is, I just think it's not light enough. There's not enough contrast between the upper ridges that should be pretty white and the lower ridges where the red should be. So I'm just going to take some white paint and I'm going to see if I can highlight it just a little bit by stippling a little bit of the white paint here and there on his muscles. That looks a bit better already. It looks less like an Englishman on his beach holiday, a bit more like it's just suffering, hurting, infected skin. But I'm going to countershade a little bit with some green, and this is Colia green shade from Villainy Inks, and it's really bright green. You can see it here in this cup, but diluted enough with some white spirits, and then I can make sort of blotchy, nasty looking skin and just give a little bit more contrast, make it look like it's a little bit more sickly. I'm just going to add a little sort of blotches on the skin, maybe they're bruise marks, maybe it's just his skin getting nasty and infected and sickly and demonic. Who knows? But it will give a little bit more interesting texture on the skin. I got it. It's the jade. is the jade that is turning this Master of Executions slightly green as well. So these scales over here, let's make them looking green and make them look like they're jade as well. So he is turning the icon he is bearing, the weapon he is with him, the crown, all of it. It's changing the guy as much as he affects it with summoning demons and so on. I think that's a good story behind him. So he's also becoming a little bit jade himself. His skin is turning green. And then finally we get to the blood effects. I've got 3 glossy paints over here, 3 red glossy paints. Blood for the Blood God, of course. I got Zombie Gore from Tooth and Coats, which is slightly darker than Blood for the Blood God. And I got Spirit Stone Red, which is a lot more translucent and a lot brighter than Blood for the Blood God. Now, I'm going to work on the portal first, because I need to glue the blood letter in there to then do all the streaking blood effects and the gore and so on. But I'm just going to give this first a layer of Blood for the Blood God. I want to make it look like this is like a pool of blood that is somehow vertical, and the blood letter is crawling out of this. And while it's still wet, I'm taking some of that Spirit Stone Red and I'm going to try and draw some circles or some swirls and just get some slightly lighter colored circles going into this pool, kind of like a circular pool over here. Now this I'm going to let dry for a bit, and then I'm going to work on the blood that is spilling over out of the pool onto the icon. But this icon is old, real old. Let's say Age of Strife old even. So for millennia, blood letters have been coming out of here and blood has been spilling out onto this icon. So I'm going to start very, very, very dark with, again, Ichor of the Damned, because I've been informed it's called Ichor, not Ichor. Ichor of the Damned. The black one, that's a little bit glossy, and I'm just going to start with a layer of that, make it look like it's just drooping out of this portal by just painting streaks down. And it doesn't matter where they go. This is dirt, this is grime, this is blood that is just coming out of there, spilling out of there, and it's sort of streaking all the way down. And one layer isn't enough. This is one layer. You can just see a sort of triangle shape going from here and there to down there. And I'm just going to add layer after layer of this until it becomes really quite black here. Now I get some Carrion Crimson mixed with Ichor of the Damned, and I'm going to start with giving it a little bit of a recessed wash, a little shading, and just add some dark coagulated blood over here. Okay, this looks nasty. It's just layer after layer of the Carrion Crimson, and every time I'm making it a little bit lighter, so less black in there. And once it's dry, it'll dry up a little bit more chalky. Right now you can see the reflection, it's really quite glossy, but that's okay. We'll see, we'll make it work. It's fine if it doesn't look like it's really millennia old blood. It's fine if it looks a little bit fresher. I don't care. Now, I'm going to go for the first of the glossy bloods, which is Zombie Gore, which is the darkest one. And I'm just going to make sure I just add a few globs here and there, and especially up here where it comes out of the portal. I want to make it look like it's spilling over and sort of running down and collecting in these sort of pools along the jade icon as it sort of seeps down. That looks good. A nice big glob that is running down. I like it. It's painted like it's coming out of that portal as well, but it's just darker than the portal. Now I got a little bit of this Zombie Gore left on my palette, so I might as well do blood spatter while I have it out. So I'm just gonna only do a little bit of blood spatter on my Master of Executions in standard traditional way. Zombie Gore, and with a little bit of a toothpick, I flick it onto him. And I want to keep it fairly simple. There's already so much blood on him, especially on the icon, but a little bit makes a lot of sense. Back to the icon, because this is now pretty much dry. Time for some brighter blood, some fresher blood. So just some blood for the blood god. And again, I'm just going to do pretty big globs coming out of the portal and streaking down. But now in a slightly different place than before. And I'm going to go down, all the way down, over these hearts that are hanging here, make it look like the portal is also feeding the heart, or maybe it's vice versa, the hearts are feeding the portal. But not too much, because I want this to look like, yeah, there's blood letters coming out, but they're not a constant stream of blood letters coming out, so there's not a constant stream of fresh blood coming out. It's just coming out right now because a blood letter is coming out of the portal, and then it dries up, and the guy has to do some more harvesting of souls before he can summon a new one. So this is going to be pretty sparingly, just there to accentuate some of these ridges. And you know what I think would be cool? It's a little bit extra, but hey, let's go for it. I like a little bit of extra gore and grimdark painting. I'm going for some weeping skulls. So I'm just going to get a little bit of this blood for the blood god in the eye, and then have it streak down a little bit. And I'm gonna do this on all the skulls, and I think it will look pretty cool. It's too bright. It's too bright. I don't really like it. It is too cartoony, so I'm gonna take some Ichor of the Damned, and I'm gonna start darkening it down a little bit. Come on. Oi, Pipoca. Look, it's Pipoca. Look, Pipoca. The people at home. Time to go for a walk. Okay, we're back. I have to start working on the base, and I'll show you why. Even though this isn't all assembled yet, I gotta first figure out exactly how I'm going to put this icon of Khorne, as it is now, on the base, because it is hovering above the ground, as you can see. So I have to rest this on something, because this thing is heavy as hell. There's a huge chunk of plastic up here and just a tiny little staff here below. It needs to rest on the ground, or it's definitely gonna break. I want to play with this. I want to use this on the tabletop, so it needs to be sturdy enough. So I am thinking I need to put it on a rock or something, but my World Eaters, they don't fight in the middle of nowhere on some barren planet. They fight in urban centers. So my guys, they walk on asphalt bases. So 40mm base, which is probably way too small for this guy. I kind of feel like I should put him on a diorama base, like a nice scenic base. There's the Squidmar Open miniature painting competition coming up. I could submit this guy on a really nice scenic base, but then I don't get to play with him. So I'm going for the playing instead. I like the game too much to sacrifice a guy like this. So I got 2 chunks of cork with a nice crack in the middle, and that's how I'm gonna place it here on the base. And all these little chunks that I'm ripping off here, I can use those after this for a bit of city rubble. I mean, look at that. You sprinkle that on your bases, looks like bits of concrete that fell off buildings onto the floor, onto the road in front of you. But I hate making these bases because I want to use the texture paste from AK Interactive for asphalt, but I also want to add little bits and pieces on there, like skulls or some broken weapon or body parts or whatever. You can't do both that easily. So let's first see how high I need to layer bricks on here to make this guy stand with the banner intact. So I get some asphalt texture, and there we go. Texture paste. I painted the ultramarine in the same way that I painted my Ultramarine's Chariot Kitbash from 2 weeks ago. So if you want to see that recipe, I recommend checking out that video. Skulls, I did like the guy and the icon itself, different shades on them to make them look slightly different. Now I'm just gonna paint on some road markings, and I just got this nice tiny little dry brush, 00, and I'm gonna see if I can just make some nice stripes, something like that. And let's go over there. And now I just have to color it in a bit. It's fine if it's rough, it's fine if it's sort of spilling over. That's okay. I'm gonna make it dirty and grimy anyway. Maybe there's some blood spatter on there so you can't see the whole line anyway. It doesn't matter. So a quick wash of streaking grime, a couple of tufts of grass later. I'm trying to rush through this so we can get to the next part of adding a lot of gore to the mini, because that bloodletter is coming out of the portal, and of course he's dragging some of that blood along with him. So I'm gonna assemble everything, glue it all in place, and then we get to the gore. I think it came out pretty well so far. Look at it. The demon is coming out of the portal. I had to set the portal back a little bit and then the demon a little bit forward so that the center of gravity or the weight is distributed properly. And I don't have this heavy portal that's leaning forward, because this point over here, that's by far the weakest point of this whole mini. And I'm afraid that if I tap this a little bit too hard, it'll just snap off there. I don't see how I can fix it. If it snaps off, I'll just pin it, and then it should be fine. Now, time for gore. And I'm gonna use the old Uhu with blood for the blood god trick. Now I gotta mix it, and the trick is the less paint you use, the more flexible the Uhu glue will be and the more stringy you can make the blood effects. Like this is pretty much what you want to get, because now you can pull it up and you get nice strings out of it. First thing I have to do is to fill the gaps between the demon and the portal. Oh, it's very stringy, because I didn't put a butt on him, and he now has no butt cheeks coming out of this portal. So I just put a big glob of this stuff right there, and then I'm going to extend it to his hands, because his hands are dragging out of that portal. They're dragging the gore along with them. Now, I can't talk too much. I got to work, because otherwise the glue is already settled and I can't work with it anymore. I'll show you what it looks like. And when the gore is dry, he finally looks like this. and I'm really happy with how he looks. I absolutely love him. This is going to be my new master of executions for my World Eaters army. I mean, the bloodletters that's leaping out of this portal, dragging the blood with him, is already pretty cool, but he's standing there scanning the battlefield for his next kill. I mean, he doesn't have to look up at that bloodletter. He doesn't have to keep an eye on it. He knows what's happening. He's done this before. And as he is killing and powering up the portal is corrupting him as well. That's what those green scales on his arm are for. He is turning a little bit jade too. And I'm really happy that I kept the weapon. Like I said, while kitbashing, I wasn't sure what to do with it. It had too much of a Xenos vibe, not enough of a World Eaters or Corrupted Space Marine vibe. I wanted to replace it. I'm happy I didn't, because now I have the story complete. The portal and the weapon go together. They feed off each other. Killing with the weapon feeds the portal, and that's what letting those bloodletters come onto the tabletop. I love him. I'm gonna play with him. I hope the icon doesn't break off, but if it does, it's an easy pinning job, and then it won't ever break again. I'm gonna go work on my next kitbash, which I think maybe Iron Warriors Abaddon. You guys requested that one pretty heavily, so I think I gotta go do that one next. And in the meantime, check out this video next. Yeah, look, it's Brownie. Brownie and Pipoca. I gotta go.